So I'm going to begin with histogram. Okay, so what do you understand by histogram? If I have to describe what a histogram is, I would put it as it's a column chart. Okay, and a column chart that shows the frequency of the occurrence of how should I put it? Occurrence of a variable in a specified range. Okay, histogram is like over a period of time has become a very important chart. It is the most common data analysis tool in the business world. When you work as a data analyst, when you join a particular company, you'll see that a lot of people talk about histograms. So because histogram is also the base chart for what is called a Pareto chart. I'll not cover about Pareto chart in this session. We'll do it in one of the future sessions because that involves statistics. Yeah, creating a Pareto chart using data is okay, but you need to also understand what exactly does it do. Okay, so the histogram collates data series into visuals by taking several data points. So these are the data points, and then grouping together into logical ranges or bins. What are ranges or bins? Think of bins as intervals, classes, or buckets. Yeah, that's what bins are. So bins are intervals into which you want to group the source data. Okay, let's take an example to understand it better. So I have some data here. Okay, this is the YTD sales. Okay, now if I look at this chart, I can see individual sales, but it no way tells me how many of these publishers did sales between, let's say, 60,000 and 80,000. What is the count? Obviously, I can use the countif function. Yeah, but then when you're creating dashboards, you don't want to display only the count using countif functions. You want to use some kind of data visualization. So how do we achieve that? Now, if you're using Excel 2013 and earlier, then you can create histogram using the data analysis toolpack add-in. And how do you get that? If you go to developer, Excel add-ins, this is the analysis toolpack. Okay, and it's very painful to create a histogram in the earlier versions of Excel. Trust me, I used to do a lot of histograms, and I used to create everything from scratch using the frequency function and all that. It was a real pain. You can also use the data analysis toolpack in Office 365 as well. It's not that you can't. As I just showed it to you, it's there in the add-ins pack. However, Excel now gives you an option to directly create the histogram. You don't need to do anything else. Select your data, directly create the histogram. Histogram chart is now an inbuilt chart in Microsoft Excel. I mean, this is really, really amazing. Anyways, so let's go ahead and let's create a histogram on the publisher's YTD sales. Okay, I'm going to move this bar chart slightly towards the left, and let's make this small because we don't need this right now. Okay, and let's create a histogram. So I'm going to select the range, which is this. Okay, and then click on the Insert tab. There is a charts group. In that chart group, go to the Insert Statistics button, chart button. Yeah, and then choose the first option, which is histogram. You can either do this, or you can go to recommended charts, go to all charts, and then there should be histogram somewhere here. One moment. Yeah, there it is. And you can choose it from here. The third way is using the dialog box launcher. Do you see this arrow, small arrow? So click on that, and it will pop up the same dialog box. Go to all charts, histogram, select, and create it. So we have got a basic histogram chart here. Okay, and you will notice that this chart which has been created, yeah, it has assigned the bins automatically. These are called bins. Do you see at the bottom? So the bin here is any sale which is between 20,900. Oh, let me zoom in. I think probably that'll be much better if I zoom in. Okay, so the first bin is 20,971 till 46,971. So any sale which is in between these two values will be clubbed here. Similarly, the sale which is between 46,971 and 72,971 will be clubbed here, and so on. So Excel automatically created this. There are times when I don't want my histogram to look like this. I want to create more bins. I want to customize the bins. I want to do other kind of customizations based upon my audience or based upon the goal of what I want to show. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's customize our chart. Okay, now right click on the axis. This is the axis, and click on Format Axis. You'll get the Format Axis pane on the right side. The first section is bins. I hope you guys are doing it with me together. In the bins, I have a couple of options here. Okay, in this first option is by category. This is the most used, or rather I would say this is used when you have repetitive text categories. Now, if you look at my data, none of the publisher is being repeated. The YTD sales, however, can be repeated. So two people or two publishers can have the same sale, but no two publishers will have the same name. So like I said, in our data, only the numbers are repeating. The names of the publisher will not repeat. You can, however, use the category option when your data is about, let's say, merchandise. So you have a stationery shop, sorry, and you're trying to sell pens, papers, staplers, pins, etc. And now you want to see the total number of sales of each category. How many of the pens I sold, how many of the paper, how many of the stapler, etc., etc. In such a scenario, you can then use the by category option. So we'll not use that. Automatic is the second option. This is the default option. This automatically decide what bins to create. Okay, we don't want this. The third option is the bin width. So if you click on this, with this option, you can decide the width of your bin, how big the bin should be. Right now it is 26,000. I don't want that. So what I usually do is, first I find the minimum and the maximum value of my data. Again, I use the function like I showed you last time. I use min, and then I select this range and I close this. So minimum is 20,971 and the max is 79,587. So this is my minimum value, this is my maximum value. So if you want the bin width to be, let's say 10,000, change this to 10,000. See what happens the moment I change this to 10,000. What Excel did was it created extra bins now, and each bin is of 10,000 size. So 20,971 plus 10,000 is 30,971. So each bin has now 10,000 size. Okay, so this is one way to create your bins. The other option is to define the number of bins. If you do not want to specify the bin width, you can specify the number of bins. Now, the only problem with this, I hardly use this option, because the moment you specify, let's say I want to create 8 bins, created 8 bins, but then look at the bin width. It becomes very difficult for the person to read these values. So try and keep your bin width, which are very easy to read. For example, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, or 15,000, something like that. I leave that decision to you. Okay. The more bins you create, the bin width will reduce accordingly. When you want all values above a certain value clubbed together, you use the overflow bin. For example, the max value that we have here is 79,587. So if I want to see all sales above 70,000, then I can put that value here. See what happens. The moment I put 70,000 here, this became greater than 70,000. Okay. Similarly, if I want to club all sales below a particular value, let's say 30,000, then I can do that in the underflow bin. So let me put 30,000 here. Right. And bin width, let's keep it at 10,000. Do you think it's much more easy to read this now? See, less than 30,000, less than equal to 30,000, 30,000 to 40,000, 40,000 to 50, 50 to 60, 60 to 70, and greater than 70. So keep your chart simple and easy to read. Yeah, don't ensure the bin width is never in decimals, obviously, and obviously it should not be in numbers which are harder to read. Okay, now let's go ahead. Now, if you notice the number of bins, it's reduced to 6. So always ensure that you keep everything neat and clean. Basically 5 common types or shapes of histogram chart. Depending on what the distribution of the data is, the histogram can be of 5 types. The first is normal distribution. Second is a bimodal distribution. Third is a right skewed distribution. So I'm not going to go into detail on how to create these different kind of histograms, because if I start doing that, it'll be a complete statistics chart class for you. So I'm not going to go into that, but I'm going to tell you how the histogram looks like. So if it is, let's say, skewed towards the right, then you'll see a completely descending chart. If you skew to the left, you'll see a ascending chart, a random distribution. So these are the few types of histogram charts that you will come across. Let's go to the sheet 2. Now, an area chart is actually a variation of a line chart. So if you have worked with a line chart, you will easily understand what an area chart is. In this chart, the area between the line and the category axis is colored to illustrate volume. We will see that in a moment. Just like the line charts, area charts are also a good way to show change over time. However, area charts are hardly used for multiple data series, as they can create confusion in interpreting the data. Remember that, guys. Do not use area charts on multiple series, and you will see shortly why am I saying that. On the other hand, if you use stacked area charts, they provide more clarity over the 2D area chart. So 2D area chart is good for one data series, but not multiple. Okay, let's take an example to understand that chart. So I have some publishers here, and this is the sale for the 4 quarters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select A3 to E24. Okay, this is the complete data. See what I'm doing? I'm selecting multiple series. Click on insert. Now in the chart group, again, there are 3 ways to create the area chart. Like the way I showed you 3 different ways to create the histogram. Same is with this. The first one is from here, which is insert line or area chart. And here you can select 2D area chart. Second option is recommended charts, all charts, and then you go to area and you select the area. The third one is the dialog launcher, which will again open the same dialog box, all charts, area, and select the area and click on OK. So when you create this, and I'm going to make this slightly bigger, this is the chart that has been created. Okay, this is clear, guys. Now, this may look beautiful. You'll say, oh, wow, so many colors. Look at the hills. It looks like mountains. Fair enough. It may look beautiful, but reading such charts is very difficult, especially if the underlying value is lesser than the other value. Yeah. So for example, 40,000. That value is hidden. You don't know what the other value is behind. I mean, how does it look like? The quarter one value, if you look at the legend, the quarter one is blue. So it's hidden behind. You will not know what is the first value. So that is the confusion. Okay. So if I delete this and if I create a line chart, obviously with so many publishers, again, line chart is not an option, but a bar chart, if you remember, I spoke about this. But still, let's go ahead and create a line chart. I want to show you something. And if I make this big, now I can clearly see the quarter one sales. This is the reason why you should never use 2D area chart for multiple series. Okay. I'm not going to, okay, let's do one thing. I'm going to change it back to, for the new guys, you can change the chart area, chart type by clicking on, go to chart design, change chart type, and go to area and click on this, and the chart type is changed. Okay. The formatting is the same as you have for line charts. There's nothing extraordinary. If you've worked with the formatting options with other charts, you will see that most of the options are exactly the same. You can also apply the different chart styles using this. Okay, very, very simple. You can move the legend on top. You can move it around, do whatever you want. Okay. Now, my recommendation, and please write this down, is to stick to area chart only if there is one data series. I'm emphasizing this twice or thrice because I keep seeing people making this mistake. Okay, so if I want to, let's say, create an area chart, I'll only do it for one data series. Like this. This is much more easier to understand. Here I know the first value is here, the second is here, third is here, fourth is here. Pretty simple. You can also format it, and then you can also have drop lines. You can add values to it. One moment, this is done, quarter one, quarter two. Yeah. You can also add data labels to it. You can, in fact, I've already done that. Okay, so you can make it rounded corners. You can do a lot of stuff in this. So again, for the new guys who have come here, please watch the previous sessions and experiment with it. Because if you are going to come again for the next session, then I will be again not explaining how to change the color, change the border, etc. And there are a lot of new stuff that I'll be sharing in this video as well and in the next video. So I'll be concentrating on that. So if I want to, let's say, plot multiple series, so how do I do that? So I'll select this and I'll use an area chart, but I will use a stacked area chart. When you use a stacked area chart, every value is clear. You can clearly see that the first value is at this point, the second is at this, third is at this, and the fourth is at this. So if you remember the first session where I spoke about the stack bar chart and stack column chart, I explained what stacking is, how stacking works. So once again, I hate repeating it, but please watch that video. Okay, moving on to the next chart, which is pie chart. Now, a pie chart is also known as a circle chart. Okay. The circle chart is based on the idea of a pie, or in modern terms, a pizza. So I'm sure everybody has had a pizza, so you know what I'm talking about. Each slice represents individual items' contribution to the overall total in terms of a percentage. In most cases, the pizza has almost symmetrical slices. That may not be true in terms of a pie or a pie chart. So I just mentioned pizza so that you can clearly visualize. A lot of people in India, they don't know what exactly is a pie. And if I say apple pie, you'll definitely not be able to imagine how it looks like. And obviously it doesn't have lines. That's why I use the term pizza. Right. So in this sheet, let's create a pie chart. I again have some sales data for few publishers. Okay. And usually avoid creating pie charts for a lot of fields, a lot of categories. And if you need to make it for a lot of fields, then I will explain how to do it using a pie chart. Okay, we'll come to that in a moment. Okay. Now you can plot the pie chart in two ways here. First, you can show WI Sports contribution in every quarter, or you can show WII Sports contribution in quarter one with respect to other publishers. Okay, so let's create a pie chart for the quarter. Okay, one important thing before we begin: unlike in bar charts or line graphs, you can only display a single data series in a pie chart. So if you remember, when you created line and column or bar charts, you could plot multiple series. In pie charts, you can't do that. So if you, let's say, try to create a pie for the entire range of B4 to E8, then what Excel will do is it will ignore the rest of the data series and it will create the pie only with the first series. We'll see that in a moment. When I create that, you will see how Excel ignores everything. Also, you cannot plot zero values or negative values in a pie. If you, let's say, try to plot negative values, then what Excel will do is it will convert the negative value to a positive value. That is, it will ignore the negative. It will show you a negative sign in the pie chart, but it will take the positive value of that, and then it will calculate the percentage. Yeah. So avoid negative or blank values, zero values. The first chart that we will create is to check what is the quarterly contribution on the YTD of WII Sports. So let's begin. I'm going to select the data. I'll not select YTD because if I select YTD, there'll be a huge gap. Obviously, I'm looking at quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. The process is the same. Click on the Insert tab, and in the chart group, click on the pie and donut chart insert button and select 2D pie. So creating charts is very simple, guys. You can create any chart. Select the data, click on Insert tab, charts group, select the chart. But after that, what do you do with that chart? How do you customize it? That is very important because ultimately your expertise will come there. Any newbie can immediately search Google and say, okay, I know how to create a chart. Select the data, click on Insert tab, insert a chart. But charting is just not inserting a chart. It's about customizing it. It's about telling a story through all that visualization. Okay, so I've added a chart, a pie chart. Now let's make this chart slightly bigger so that we can work with it. And I can also show you what am I doing here. The first thing that I will do is I will add data labels. Okay, so data labels have been added. You can also, if you do not want to add data labels like this, for the new guys, remember you can do it from the chart design tab, add chart element, and you can add data labels from here as well. The benefit of doing it this way is you can specify where you want the data label and how you want it. So that is one way. The third way is to click on this plus icon and then add data labels. And if you click this small arrow, then you can decide where you want to create it. Let's create it on the outside end. Okay, so I hope everybody have reached here. Yeah. Now let's go ahead and let's format data labels. So right click on this and click on format data labels. There are a lot of options here, guys. It now totally depends on what you want to show here. So if you select value from cells, label contains value from cells, then it will ask you where do you want to pick up the values from. I hardly use this because I want my chart to pick up values like this. Okay, let's go back. Second is if you click on series names, it'll show you the name of the series. Obviously, we don't need this. We already have that in the chart title. We know this is about WII Sports. So I'm not going to use that. The third I use a lot, which is the category name. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. And when I do this, when I use the category name, I always delete the legend because I don't need the legend anymore. I have this which tells what the category is all about. This again, you can decide whether you want the value to be shown or you want the percentage to be shown. If you want the value to be shown, you can further format the value. Let's say I want to show currency, then you can do currency. I don't want to show decimals, so 0, 1000 separator, whatever. You format the data as you want it. You can do that as well. If you do not want to show, let's say, the value, or you want to show the value and the percentage, go ahead and click percentage. Okay, in the case of percentage, the problem here is that this formatting that you have here will spoil that. Okay, so do not use that together. Now, if I use percentage, see how it's showing the percentage. Show leader lines. This is something when your data label is far from the pie, then this line that you see here, this is called leader lines. I hardly use it. So bring it back here. I don't use leader lines. The next one is legend key. So if you wish, you can use the legend keys as well. So the legend keys, what it'll do is it'll create a small legend with the respective color in that. You can insert it if you want, or you can ignore it. I usually ignore it. The next is the separator. Okay. Now, separator decides how you want to separate these label values. So if you select comma, you'll see how the values are separated by comma. If you use a semicolon, period, new line, space, that's how it does it. I hardly use space because that can really create confusion. So I prefer new line or a comma. It depends on what kind of data I'm handling. There are times when my, let's say this category values have comma, then I do not use comma, then I use new line. So it depends, because if I use comma, then it can create more confusions. Now look at Super Mario Brothers. It has a dot, so I never use period here. Yeah, so new line is the safest. It moves it to the next line. Okay, you can do more customizations if you want. You can, I've already spoken about this. You can move the label position to center, inside and outside and or best fit. Okay. Again, you can format it by selecting a particular style. I like this black color, that's why I keep coming back to this. Otherwise, there are other options as well. Yeah, see. Now, this particular format is also part of your homework. So remember, it's here. Okay, so you can use these kind of options as well. Now, let me explain something. You see here percentage 17, and you see 29, 22, and 32. How did Excel calculate that? So if I copy these values here for a moment, the total is 2,33,051,516. So if I divide this value by this, I get 0.2889. If I change that to percentage, it becomes 29. So the Q2 value is 29% of the total sale. See this, 29%. This is how Excel calculates it and then automatically creates the percentage. So this is, I explained this because you should know how it calculated that. Okay, like I said, you cannot plot negative values. So if I plot negative values, see what happens. Now quarter one is 17%, right? So if I plot, let's say minus 40,305, it'll show you minus 17%. It doesn't make sense because the total of the percentage should be 100. It will plot this value as 17. So if I, let's say, equal to this divided by this, and if I change this to percentage, let me increase this, it becomes 17%. So it took the positive value, created a percentage, and it showed you 17%. But at the same time, it added a negative sign to it. This interpretation obviously is wrong. It does not make sense. So avoid using negative values. The other part is there are a lot of times. So if I just change this, and if I want, I'll make this, let's say, font black, and I'll increase this. Or let's do one thing. Let's keep it at 12, and let's make it bold. What I'm doing is actually I'm sharing something which you will be using it in the homework. Let's say I want to highlight the sales of quarter two. I want an extra emphasis on this particular slice. So what I can do is, okay, click on this and again click on it. The moment you do that, only that part is now selected. Click on it and press your left mouse button. Do not leave it and slightly drag it outside. See, this slice comes out of the pie. And now, whenever I'm looking at this chart, my eye will first go to this extra slice and say, oh, why is this out? What is so special about it? So obviously, do it only for special cases when you want to. Okay, guys, I just got a message, no sound. Can you guys hear me? Yes or no?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear. Okay. So people, wait, I would recommend leaving and joining back. Okay, coming back. So remember, use this slice on if you want to emphasize a particular point. Okay, so this is again a part of your homework, so you should know how to do it. This is called exploding the pie. If you want, you can explode the other parts as well, like this. So it depends on what you want to emphasize. Obviously, this doesn't make sense, you know, exploding the complete pie. So move one of them and highlight that. Go ahead, try this. This is very important, guys. This is part of your homework. If you're not able to understand this, let me know. Are you able to do it? Hitendra says, I remember pizza when exploding pie. I know, I understand. That's a nice one. Okay, so Ved wants to, okay, Ved, what you have to do is, now, there are times when you are creating a pie. What I'll do is, I'll reduce the plot size so that it is not touching the border. There are a lot of scenarios when you want to emphasize on a particular slice. Here, obviously, it doesn't make sense. Why am I exploding the pie, or why am I emphasizing on one particular slice? Because it's just saying quarter one, quarter four, quarter three, quarter two. There are scenarios when you have a lot of sales values, and or let's say there are employees who have overachieved or underperformed, and you want to pull your audience attention on top of that. So for that, just click on the pie, and whatever slice you want to drag out, click on it again. So only that particular slice is selected. Left click on it, and do not leave your mouse button, and drag it outside. And this is how you will see the pie. Okay, okay, let's continue. So remember, this is how you do that. Okay, now I also want to talk to you about the angle of the first slice and pie explosion. So let's click on this format data series. When you click on format data series, you'll see angle of first slice. When you increase the angle, see what happens. The pie. Why did I say chai? I want to have some chai. That means sorry about that. Right. So when you increase the angle of the first slice, the pie rotates. This is very important, guys, because when you are creating a pie chart, always have the smaller slice of the pies at the bottom, right? And the bigger ones on the top. It's much more easier to read. So when you are finally creating a dashboard and your pie is ready, use this to rotate. I've already spoken about pie explosion. If you see what happens when you explode it like this. Yeah. So completely up to you how you handle this. Now let's understand the different variations of the pie chart. So the first variation is a 3D pie chart. In most of the chart types, I do not recommend using a 3D chart as it can make interpreting data slightly difficult. And this is the common understanding of a lot of data analysts, a lot of Excel experts that avoid using a 3D chart. But pie chart is one chart where you can use a 3D chart. I have used the 3D chart many times. Let's go ahead and let's change the chart type to 3D and let's play with it. Okay, so go to chart design, change chart type. The first variation is the 3D pie. Click on that and click on OK. And this is how your 3D chart looks like. You can go ahead and play with it. You can explode again and bring one out. The reading of the chart is very easy because all the values, oh, let me change this minus to plus. All the values are here. There is no extra reading. There's no axis, x-axis, y-axis, which can create the reading difficult. No, everything is here. So this is one scenario where you can use the 3D chart. The next variation is the pie of pie. Now, guys, this is important. Okay. Now, the pie of pie chart makes it easier to see and understand small slices of a pie. These chart types separate the smaller slices from the main pie chart and display them in a secondary pie. So what I'll do is I'll change this back to, chart type back to a normal pie. Okay. And I'll make this slightly smaller and I'll bring this here. Okay. So when you create a pie of pie chart, the number of categories in the smaller pie are chosen by default. Always remember that. And you will see that in a moment. It's always the final rows of the data set. So if this is your data, Excel will automatically assign the number of categories for that. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's create it. If you have a larger data set, then the number of categories into the smaller pie increase. Okay. So this is the chart. Okay. Or rather, let's do one thing. I'm going to delete this and let's create a fresh pie chart for the WII sports. So I'm going to select this range. Okay. And then I will click on, in fact, let's do one thing. It's two big values. I'm going to paste this here and I'm going to delete this and let's change this to, let's say 5,000, 5,000, and rest of the values remain as it is. We don't need YTD for this. Okay. Now let's select this. Okay. And let's insert pie of a pie. So what Excel did was it created two categories here and rest of the categories here. Obviously, you do not understand what exactly is happening here. I will explain that in a moment. Okay. Let's add some data labels to it. Okay. And I am going to format the data labels and I'm going to make it category name and percentage. Easy to understand. Okay. This is done. Let's make this slightly bold so you can also see it. You notice it's saying other here, and then it is showing these two values, and then Q1 and Q2 here. What it is doing is it is clubbing these categories and showing it here. Yeah, I want you to create this. Everyone create this. Come at this. Okay, you want me to zoom further? Okay, hold on. Let me zoom further. Let me know if you can see it, guys. Now it's much easier to understand what Excel has done here. Correct? Excel has clubbed the Q3 and Q4 into one pie, and in the secondary pie, it has shown the breakup of that. This pie is useful when you want to club smaller quantities into one pie, one slice actually, or pie as well. So this is the slice and this is the pie. So you want to club it together. And this is a part of your homework, guys, because so remember how to do this. Now, here I want, what Excel has done is, okay, let's click on the data series and format data series. So you'll come here. Once you reach here, guys, let me know because this part is very important. This is, you will not see this in other charts. When you right click on the data series, you get the format data series pane. Here you will see split series by. The first option is position. This is the default. Excel has split these pie charts based on position, but I don't want that. I want the second option, which is value. I will explain the rest of them. The value. What I want Excel to do is I want Excel to split based on any value which is less than, let's say, 15,000. See what it do this time. Q1 and Q2 is less than 15,000. So it clubbed them together. It's showing that as 7%. And then it is showing the breakup of that here, Q1 and Q2. Go ahead, try this, guys. This is very important. You'll be using a lot of pie on pie charts. Go ahead, try it. Again, you can use a pie explosion. I'm not going to go into that. Cap width, second plot size. The second plot size is something which you can make it equal or bigger. So it is completely up to you on what you want to draw the emphasis on. Okay. You can also split, do a lot of stuff, but this is important. You need to understand how to split the pie on pie. The next is on percentage value and the third is custom. Okay. And then you can move it. So I'm going to stick with value. Percentage also you can do it, but for when you select percentage value, you can specify a percentage, right? So less than 10%, it has clubbed it together. Remember that. The next variation is the pie on bar. So if you go back here, change chart type, this is the fourth variation, which is bar of pie. If you click on this, what happens is now you do not get a secondary pie, you get a bar. It works on the same principle as pie on pie. Yeah, you can again experiment with this. It's very simple. You can change values by position or value, or you can split it by whatever you want. It'll work exactly in that way like it did on pie on pie. So pie on pie is the most used option, not this particular option, but yes, you can also use it. As I mentioned in the beginning of the pie chart, that you can only plot one data series in a pie chart. But if you want to plot multiple series, then what do you do? For that, you use something which is called a donut chart. A donut chart is a variation of a pie chart. Now, I deliberately put this image because this is how a donut looks like. It has a small hole in between. So it's just a fun trivia fact. So there are a lot of people who actually don't know what a donut is. I'm sure you guys have gone to MOD. So I go to MOD a lot. So this is how a donut looks. Right. Let's go ahead. Now here I have the same data. which we had in the pie chart worksheet. Let's create a donut chart for one series, and then we will add more series to it. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to click on Insert, and I click on the donut chart, and I've got a donut chart. Most of the options, formatting options, are same as pie chart. Okay. One important customization is that you can reduce the size of the hole. Okay. You can make it big or small. Right click on data series, click on format data series, and angle of slice I've already explained. Explosion works exactly like it does in the pie chart. This is different. This is the donut hole size. This is how you can reduce it. Yeah. This looks much better. I hardly use higher values. I use close small holes for donuts. Yeah, so remember that this is how you can reduce the size. One major drawback of donut chart is that you cannot position the label on the outer end. So if you remember in the pie chart, you can right click on the labels, format data labels, and you can click on outside end and the labels will move out. But you can't do that here. So if I add data labels, if you right click on it and click on format data labels, there's no option to move it out. Okay. Now, if you want to move it out, unfortunately, you'll have to do it manually like this. Or you can write a macro. I'll not get into programming aspect of it, but yes, if you're really interested on how to achieve that, send me a message, contact me offline, whatever, and I'll create a video on my YouTube channel for you on how to achieve this using code. So that unfortunately is one drawback. The other drawback of donut chart is that if you try to plot multiple data series, then it really clutters up the chart. And this is the reason why data analysts prefer using a bar or a column chart to plot the same data. So now let me explain. I'm going to delete this. I am going to select this and create a donut chart. Now look at this chart. Okay, and I'm going to reduce the whole size. Now if I add data labels like this, and if I format it, this is like too confusing. It's very cluttered. I mean, why would you want your audience to go through such complexity? So avoid using a donut charts for multiple series, even though you can do it, but I would recommend not to do it. Yeah. So the same thing, can be done. Can be done in a bar chart or a column chart, and you can do a lot of customizations there, and it will look really nice. So this is all about the 4 charts that we have covered today.